Hello and welcome to Pasquini Coffee Company. My name is Brendan Pasquini and I'm going to go ahead and show everyone how to replace a vacuum breaker on your espresso machine. This video will be using the Pasquini Livia 90. However, this instruction applies to most espresso machines that use a standard style vacuum breaker. A vacuum breaker is a pressure tool that allows the boiler to pressurize and depressurize accordingly, so that way that you have consistent use of the machine. This is one of the most common wear and tear parts of any espresso machines, and on average lasts about 6 months to a year, depending on the make and model of your machine. For the Livia 90, we'll show you how to replace this vacuum breaker, but do note that on other brand machines, there may be slight differences, but the general purpose will be the same. However, on certain machines such as the Pasquini Livia G4 or Bezzera Crema, they use a combo safety vacuum breaker that requires significantly different instructions. Details on how to remove that style vacuum valve will be featured in a separate video. In order to replace the vacuum breaker on your Pasquini Livia 90, you will need a Phillips head screwdriver and a size 17mm socket. While yes, you can do this procedure with wrenches, it is rather difficult to do as the pipework does not allow for much movement inside the machine, and a socket wrench will make your life much easier. If you don't have a socket, we highly suggest to get one before starting this procedure. Otherwise, once again, you can use wrenches, but it will be very difficult. You will also need either some kind of thread locker, we use Loctite, or you can use pipe tape as well, but you need something to secure the vacuum valve so it doesn't leak onto the new machine. In order to replace the vacuum valve, you first need to take the top off of your machine, lift open the reservoir housing, take the cup tray off of the machine, and pull the reservoir out. If your reservoir doesn't come out right away or is stubborn, use the cup rack for the machine, flip it over, hook it underneath the reservoir, and pry up against the back of the machine, and this will loosen the reservoir so it comes out. On older machines, there will be a wire attached to here. Make sure that you remove that wire and reattach it before inserting it, as that is the water sensor wire. Other newer machines don't have this wire, so simply take out the reservoir and set aside. Once you have the reservoir removed and top tray removed, undo the 2 retention screws on the left and right side of the machine. These will most likely be a Phillips screw unless your machine has been modified otherwise. Once the retention screws are removed, take the top off of the machine and set aside. Once you have the top off of your machine, you will see the vacuum valve located right here onto the boiler. This larger valve on the back side of the boiler is your safety valve, and that usually doesn't need to be replaced as often, but if you do see steam hissing from it or hear hissing sounds, it's good to replace this every couple of years as well. However, in this video, we will focus primarily on the vacuum breaker. Do note that for the vacuum breaker, if it is a 2-piece design such as this entire portion must be removed and replaced. Do not leave this bottom half on there and just replace the top half, as most likely won't reseal if you try to put it back together. As you can see on here, there is a riser that bolts directly to the boiler and the vacuum valve goes into that. This riser is not meant to be removed and should stay attached to the boiler at all times. If it does come out when you remove the vacuum breaker, separate the 2 pieces and place this back inside the machine. In order to remove the vacuum breaker, use your 17mm socket, slide it over top, and remove. Once it's loosened, go ahead and discard the old vacuum breaker and get your new vacuum breaker. As stated earlier, we typically use Loctite, but pipe tape works as well. Add a little bit of Loctite or pipe tape to the vacuum breaker and reinsert and retighten. You can go ahead and thread it by hand until it's in place, and then use your socket wrench to fully tighten it down. Once the vacuum breaker is securely tightened in place, you can go ahead and turn your machine back on with the cover removed. Just make sure that it is sealing correctly. Be careful not to touch the pipes or wires when the cover is off to avoid burning or electrocution. If the machine is on and pressurized and the vacuum valve is sealing, then you're good to go ahead and reassemble the top of the machine. But if it persists to leak, then something went wrong and you have to try and reinsert the vacuum valve. Once the machine isn't leaking and the vacuum valve is operating accordingly, go ahead and power down the machine, let it cool off, and then put the lid back on top of it. Thank you for watching our video on how to replace the vacuum valve on your Pasquini Olivia 90. To see other useful tech tips and videos, please subscribe below and visit www.pasquini.com for additional details and information.